Title: A family dinner turned into a criminal investigation. Chapter 1: The Last Perfect Evening. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, like, and drop a comment below, because tonight's story isn't just disturbing, it's the kind that hides in plain sight. And by the end of this chapter, you'll question how well you really know the people closest to you. On the outside, the Carter family looked flawless. Daniel Carter, 38, was a regional sales manager for a solar energy company in suburban Colorado. He posted motivational quotes every Monday. Gym selfies every Wednesday. Family photos every Sunday. His wife, Melissa, 34, ran a lifestyle blog about motherhood, gratitude, and building joy in everyday moments. Their two daughters, Sophie and Ava, were 4 and 6, bright-eyed, gap-toothed, always smiling in coordinated outfits. Their home sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in Brookhaven Estates. White siding. 2-car garage. A swing set in the backyard. Neighbors described them as friendly, normal, the kind of people you'd trust with your spare key. On October 14, at 6:42 p.m., Melissa posted a photo to Instagram. The caption read, "Sunday dinner with my favorite humans. Grateful for this life." The picture showed the 4 of them around the kitchen island. Spaghetti. Garlic bread. Daniel's arm wrapped around Melissa's shoulder. The girls laughing mid-bite. That was the last confirmed sighting of Melissa and the children alive. At 8:17 a.m. the next morning, Melissa's best friend, Rachel Monroe, rang the Carter doorbell. Melissa hadn't responded to texts. That alone was strange. She was the kind of person who replied within minutes, even at 2 a.m. Rachel knocked again. No answer. Melissa's SUV was still in the driveway. The garage door was closed. Through the side window, Rachel could see Melissa's purse sitting on the kitchen counter. She called Daniel. He answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said, breathless. "I'm at work." "What's up?" "Where's Melissa?" Rachel asked. "She missed her doctor's appointment. She's not answering." There was a pause, just a second too long. I don't know. We had dinner last night. I left early this morning for a site visit." She was asleep. Rachel felt something tighten in her chest. Melissa never slept past 7 a.m. Never. At 9:03 a.m., Rachel dialed 911. Officer Grant Hollis arrived within minutes. He was a 12-year veteran. Calm. Methodical. The kind of cop who noticed details most people ignored. There were no signs of forced entry. The front door was locked. Inside, everything looked staged. The plates from dinner were still in the sink. A half-filled glass of wine sat on the counter. Melissa's phone was found wedged between couch cushions, powered off. Upstairs, the girls' beds were made. Their favorite stuffed animals were missing. Officer Hollis stepped back into the kitchen and studied the room. "People don't just vanish," he muttered. By noon, Daniel Carter was standing in his own driveway, speaking to police while neighbors watched from behind curtains. His voice cracked in all the right places. "I just want my family back," he said. "If someone took them, please, just bring them home." The footage made local news by 5 p.m. A devoted husband. A worried father. A community in shock. But Detective Lena Morales wasn't convinced. Morales had worked homicide for 15 years. She had seen grief. Real grief. It was messy. Unpredictable. Loud. Daniel Carter was controlled. Too controlled. When she interviewed him that evening, he maintained steady eye contact. His timeline was precise. "We ate dinner around 6. Put the girls to bed at 8. Melissa and I talked for a bit. I left for work at 5:15 a.m. She was in bed." "Did you argue?" Morales asked. "No," Daniel replied quickly. "We were good. Really good." She noted the emphasis. Phone records told a slightly different story. At 11:48 p.m., long after dinner, Daniel's phone pinged near an oil storage site 30 miles away, one owned by his company. When confronted, Daniel blinked. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Went for a drive to clear my head." "At midnight?" Morales asked. He swallowed. "Yeah." Meanwhile, a neighbor's security camera captured something else. At 5:27 a.m., Daniel's truck was backed into his driveway, unusually close to the garage. He made multiple trips between the house and the vehicle. The footage was grainy, but investigators counted at least 3 separate loading movements. Daniel claimed he was loading work equipment. But his co-worker later confirmed, "We store tools on site. There was no reason to bring anything from home." By the second day, volunteers were organizing search parties. Melissa's face was plastered on posters. The girls' school held a candlelight vigil. Daniel stood in front of cameras again. His words were polished. His eyes were dry. Then came the financial records. 2 weeks before the disappearance, Daniel had transferred $27,000 into a separate account. An account Melissa didn't know existed. There were also text messages. Hundreds of them. To a coworker named Aaron Lawson. The messages weren't about spreadsheets. They were about starting over. About a fresh life. About not feeling trapped anymore. Detective Morales felt the case tightening like a noose. Still, there were no bodies. No crime scene. No proof. Until the third night. At 2:14 a.m., officers executed a search warrant on the Carter home. They brought in luminol, a chemical that reacts with blood, even if it's been cleaned. The master bedroom lit up like a constellation. Tiny specks across the hardwood floor. Faint traces along the bed frame. In the hallway outside the girls' room, more. Not enough to see with the naked eye. But enough. And then they checked Daniel's truck. Inside the cargo area, under the rubber mat, investigators found a small pink fabric thread. It matched the fibers from Sophie's favorite blanket, the one missing from her bed. But that wasn't what made Detective Morales' blood run cold. In the truck's GPS history, there was a recorded stop at 6:32 a.m. the morning Melissa disappeared. Location, Cervantes oil field. Specifically, a remote storage tank access road. When officers arrived at the site before dawn, floodlights cutting through the darkness, they expected to find nothing. Instead, they noticed disturbed earth near one of the tanks. Fresh. Recently shoveled. And when they brought out the ground-penetrating radar, the screen revealed something beneath the surface. 2 small, shallow shapes. And one larger one nearby. But when they opened the locked hatch on the oil tank itself, what they found changed everything. The cracks in the perfect picture. By sunrise, the oil field was swarming with law enforcement. Floodlights cut through the early morning fog as crime scene technicians moved with slow, deliberate precision. The disturbed soil near the storage tank had already confirmed investigators' worst fears. Beneath less than a foot of dirt, they found Melissa Carter's body. She was still wearing the same sweater from the Instagram photo. The one with the caption about gratitude. Detective Lena Morales stood a few feet away, her jaw clenched. The shallow grave told a story of urgency, not planning. Whoever buried her had been in a hurry. But the oil tank, that was something else. Fire crews were called in to safely access the sealed hatch. The smell hit before the visual confirmation did, thick, metallic, unmistakable. Inside, in separate tanks, were the bodies of Sophie and Ava. The recovery took hours. Hardened officers walked away in silence. This wasn't just murder. It was calculation. By 10 a.m., Daniel Carter was no longer a grieving husband. He was the prime suspect. When officers brought him in for questioning, he didn't resist. He didn't ask for a lawyer immediately. He simply nodded, as if this had always been the inevitable next step. Detective Morales placed 3 photographs on the metal table, the shallow grave, the oil tanks, and the GPS map from his truck. You want to explain this? She asked evenly. Daniel stared at the images. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he exhaled sharply. This isn't what it looks like. Morales didn't blink. It looks like you drove your family to your worksite and left them there. His composure cracked, just slightly. I loved my daughters, he said, his voice rising. You don't understand what Melissa was like. There it was. A shift. Until now, he had spoken about them as a unit. My family. My girls. Us. Now it was Melissa. Investigators dug deeper into the Carters' private life, and the image of the perfect suburban marriage began to rot from the inside. Financial strain had been mounting for years. Despite the curated social media posts, they were months behind on mortgage payments. Credit cards were maxed out. Melissa's blog wasn't generating real income. And Daniel? Daniel had been living a double life. His relationship with Erin Lawson wasn't casual. It was obsessive. Text messages revealed hotel reservations, weekend plans, and conversations about selling the house. I feel like I'm suffocating, he had written to her just 10 days before the murders. I want something real. Just us. Erin, when interviewed, looked genuinely stunned. She admitted to the affair but insisted Daniel told her he was separated. That he and Melissa were basically roommates. He said they were working out custody details, she told detectives through tears. He said he was unhappy for years. But phone data contradicted that narrative. The night of the family dinner, the perfect evening, Daniel had sent Erin a message at 9:12 p.m. Soon, it read. Everything changes soon. Detective Morales replayed that timestamp over and over. Soon. Back in the interrogation room, Daniel's confidence was unraveling. You're building a story that isn't true, he said. Melissa was emotional. She was overwhelmed. We argued that night. She said she was leaving. Taking the girls. And then what? Morales asked. She hurt them. The room went still. Daniel swallowed hard. I walked in and she had already, his voice broke. I lost control. It was a pivot investigators had anticipated, the blame shift. But the autopsy reports dismantled his version within hours. Melissa's injuries were consistent with manual strangulation. No defensive wounds on Daniel. No signs of a struggle that supported his claim of walking in mid-incident. More critically, forensic timing suggested the children were alive after Melissa had already died. Which meant one thing. Daniel had time to think. Time to drive 30 miles. Time to decide. When confronted with the medical findings, Daniel's breathing grew shallow. His hands trembled for the first time. You don't get it, he whispered. I just wanted a clean break. Morales leaned forward. A clean break doesn't involve burial sites and oil tanks. Outside the station, the media storm had intensified. News vans lined the street. Headlines shifted from missing mother to father under investigation. Neighbors who once defended Daniel were now replaying every interaction in their minds. He seemed so normal, one said on camera. He helped me fix my fence last month. That was the part that unsettled everyone. Normal. Investigators executed another search of the Carter home, this time focusing on digital evidence. Melissa's laptop revealed something chilling. She had been planning to leave him. A drafted email to a divorce attorney sat in her outbox, unsent. It detailed emotional detachment. Financial deception. A growing fear that Daniel was becoming someone she didn't recognize. She had written, I don't know what he's capable of anymore. The timestamp was 10:03 p.m. Less than 2 hours before Daniel's phone pinged at the oil field. By day 3, the pressure became suffocating. Detectives presented him with everything, GPS data, fiber matches, financial transfers, the affair, the autopsy timeline. Daniel stared at the table. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he said quietly. It wasn't a full confession. But it wasn't denial either. Then came the final blow. Investigators pulled surveillance footage from a gas station located halfway between the Carter home and the oil site. At 5:54 a.m., Daniel's truck was captured on camera. In the passenger seat, barely visible through the windshield, was movement. A small shadow. One of the girls. Alive. Which meant his earlier statement, that Melissa had already harmed them, was impossible. When Morales slid the still image across the table, Daniel's face drained of color. For the first time since this began, he looked afraid. Not of prison. Not of exposure. But of the truth catching up to him. You said they were already gone, Morales said softly. So who was sitting next to you at 5:54 a.m., Daniel? The silence that followed felt heavier than any confession. And then he did something no one in that room expected. He asked for a deal. But what he was about to reveal wasn't just about escape, or affairs, or financial stress. It was about something darker. Something no one had uncovered yet. And if he was telling the truth, then this case wasn't over. The truth no one saw coming. Daniel Carter didn't ask for a lawyer. He asked for a deal. Detective Lena Morales studied him across the metal table. His earlier composure was gone. His hands shook. His breathing was uneven. But there was something else in his eyes now, calculation. You don't get to negotiate, Morales said. Not after what we pulled out of those tanks. Daniel swallowed. You think I planned this alone? Morales didn't respond. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I wasn't the only one who wanted them gone. The room shifted. Be careful, Morales warned. If you're about to blame your dead wife again. I'm not talking about Melissa. The silence that followed felt electric. He slid his cuffed hands across the table. Check her life insurance. Investigators already had. Melissa Carter's policy was worth $500,000. Daniel was the primary beneficiary. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was a change made 6 weeks before the murders. The beneficiary had briefly been updated. To someone else. Aaron Lawson. It had been switched back to Daniel 3 weeks later. Morales felt her pulse quicken. Why was your girlfriend listed on your wife's life insurance? Daniel's jaw tightened. Because it wasn't just an affair. The interrogation room seemed smaller. He continued. Melissa found out in August. Not just about Aaron, about the money. The debt. The accounts. She threatened to expose everything. My job, the fraud, all of it. Fraud. That word hadn't surfaced before. Daniel worked in regional sales for a solar energy firm. High commissions. Performance bonuses. Trust-based reporting. Forensic accountants were brought in immediately. Within 24 hours, they uncovered something buried beneath spreadsheets and client contracts. Daniel had been inflating sales numbers for over a year. Creating phantom accounts. Diverting incentive payments. Nearly $240,000 unaccounted for. If exposed, he would lose his job. Face charges. Possibly prison. Melissa had found discrepancies while preparing tax documents. According to deleted text fragments recovered from her phone's cloud backup, she confronted him. One message read, I won't lie for you. I won't risk our kids' future for this. Another, you need help. This isn't the man I married. Daniel stared at the table as Morales laid the financial documents in front of him. She was going to report you, Morales said flatly. She said she would if I didn't turn myself in, Daniel replied. She already spoke to a lawyer. And Aaron? Daniel hesitated. That part wasn't supposed to happen. Investigators pulled Aaron back in for a second interview. This time, they didn't ask about romance. They asked about money. Aaron broke within an hour. Daniel had told her about the embezzlement weeks before the murders. Told her he was fixing it. That once he had access to the life insurance payout, He could repay everything and start fresh. He said Melissa was unstable, Aaron sobbed. He said she was threatening to ruin all of us. I didn't think he'd actually. Her voice collapsed. Digital forensics found something else. 3 days before the murders, Aaron had searched online, how long does it take police to process life insurance after accidental death? She claimed it was curiosity. Panic. Morbid fascination. But text messages between her and Daniel painted a darker picture. Daniel, if she's gone, everything resets. Aaron, then what are you waiting for? The timestamp on that message was 11:07 p.m. Less than an hour before Melissa's drafted email to the divorce attorney. Back in custody, Daniel realized the walls were closing in. He shifted tactics. I didn't plan to hurt the girls, he said quietly. That wasn't part of it. Morales stared at him. There was a part. He nodded slowly. Melissa confronted me that night. She said she was taking the kids and going to the police in the morning. I panicked. I just needed more time. More time for what? To fix it. To make it look like she left. But the children woke up. Sophie walked into the hallway. Ava followed. They saw, Daniel whispered. They wouldn't stop crying. The confession unraveled from there, not dramatic, not explosive, but methodical. He described driving them to the oil field under the pretense of a work visit, promising them pancakes afterward. Investigators documented every word. There were no supernatural motives. No sudden madness. Just fear, greed, and the desperate need to protect an image. Daniel Carter was formally charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, multiple counts of financial fraud, and evidence tampering. Aaron Lawson was charged with conspiracy and obstruction. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Prosecutors dismantled the illusion of the perfect family with precision. Jurors saw the Instagram photos, the text messages, the financial spreadsheets, the gas station footage showing movement in the passenger seat. The defense argued emotional breakdown, stress, marital conflict. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Daniel received 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. Aaron received 18 years. The Carter house was sold the following spring. The swing set removed. The white siding repainted. New owners moved in by summer. Neighbors stopped talking about it publicly. But online, the last Instagram photo still circulates. Sunday dinner with my favorite humans. Grateful for this life. Smiling faces. Perfect lighting. A moment frozen in time. What makes this case linger isn't just the crime. It's how ordinary it looked. No history of violence. No police reports. Just curated happiness hiding mounting debt, betrayal, and a crumbling ego. Detective Morales later said in an interview, the most dangerous offenders aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones trying hardest to look perfect. 3 months after sentencing, investigators received a final forensic report from Daniel's company. The fraud extended further back than anyone realized. There were other manipulated accounts. Other unexplained transfers. It turned out Melissa wasn't the first person who had threatened to expose him. She was just the first who didn't back down. And here's the part that keeps people up at night. If Rachel hadn't gone to that house the next morning, if she had assumed Melissa needed space, if no one had checked the driveway, Daniel's original plan might have worked. A missing persons case. A grieving husband. An insurance payout. A fresh start. Sometimes the scariest crimes aren't committed in dark alleys or abandoned buildings. They happen at a kitchen island, over spaghetti and garlic bread, under soft lighting and smiling faces. And the people capable of them? They look just like everyone else. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one.